Hi, my name's Nathan. Thank you for watching my video. This is a review of my gaming experiences from last month, March 2020. Just going to share some thoughts on some games that I played, a little gaming project that I'm working on, and some games that are leaving my collection and why. So to get right into it, I got to play a lot of games last month, quite a few, so I'm not going to talk about all of them, but just to touch on a few. The one game that I played last month that was new to me is called Hop. It's a simple dexterity game. Basically, one player, you take turns. On your turn, you're throwing a little foam disc about that big to one of the other players who's trying to catch it on their finger. And it's not a cooperative game, but on your turn, when you're making the toss, the player who's trying to catch it, each of you get a point, basically, if you're successful. So for that one moment, you're both trying to make this a successful toss because you'll both get something out of it. But at the end of the game, you're trying to have the most points. I thought it was an interesting little game. It was kind of silly, kind of fun, but there were a couple of things that I thought were really kind of elevated it a little bit. One is that every player had a certain number of balloon tokens, and at different times when you were like unsuccessful on your toss or things like that, you would lose a balloon token. And so the game would end either when one player got a certain number of points or when one player lost all their balloon tokens, at which point whoever had the most points would win. And I thought that was a good idea because in these kinds of dexterity games, sometimes it can take a while, a number of plays, before anyone starts to get really good at it. And so if the goal was just simply to reach a certain number of points, your first few games could go on for a long time because people just aren't scoring points because they don't have that, they haven't developed that skill yet. So I thought that was a nice touch. I think the first few times you play the game, it's probably going to end when somebody's out of balloons, and then whoever has the most points will be winning, will be the winner. But then, as you get better at it, people will start winning by hitting that max points there. So anyhow, it was a cool game with a couple of nice little rules like that. Also played a few more games of Unmatched, which is a fun game from Restoration Games where each player takes a hero and their sidekicks and has a head-to-head fight with another hero and their sidekicks, and all the characters are taken for the most part from like public domain works, characters like Robin Hood, King Arthur, etc. So played a few more matches of that. Tried something a little different that's not really in the rule book, but turned out to be pretty fun. So the rules basically say if you're playing one-on-one, you each get your own hero and your sidekicks that go with it. You can also play a four-player game where you have two teams of two, with each player again having their one hero with their sidekicks. Or if you want to play a three-player game, you can have a team of two where each player has their own hero and sidekicks, and then they play against another player who controls two heroes and their sidekicks. And so it just seemed like a logical leap to say, well, why not play one-on-one, but each player has two heroes with their sidekicks. So I played it a couple of times like that, and that was pretty fun. It gives you a little more to think about, a little more to strategize about, and it means you're not just matching one hero against another hero, but you're matching one team of heroes against another team of heroes. So it's pretty interesting. That was a fun experience, and I think that would probably be the way I would prefer to play it, honestly, going forward. So that was pretty cool. We got to play some more Star Wars Destiny. I'm getting to the point now where I know the Star Wars Destiny line is ending, but I only got into it really like in the last 6 months or a year. So I've been, going back and buying singles and things like that to build my decks with. But I've gotten, I think, to the point where I'm just about done building new decks for the game. I'm kind of tweaking out some of my existing decks. I've got like about a dozen decks or so built for the game. And I think I'll just, kind of do that. I'll sort of polish those decks a little bit, get them right where I want them in terms of being able to work with their strategy well. And then I'll just hang on to those and let go of the rest of my collection. So just about to that point. But I like it. I think it's fun. I'm kind of, I feel bad for people who are really into it that the line has ended. But at the same time, it's kind of nice to be able to getting to the point where it's like, this will just be like a cool little 2-player game. I can sit down with a friend, and pull out one of a dozen decks and have a go at it. So that's pretty cool. Also, very exciting this past month, I started in a new D&D campaign that my nephew is running. So it's the first. It's not the first game he's GM'd, but it's the first one that I'll be playing in with him. So we had our first session a couple of weeks ago, and that was pretty fun. Looking forward to our next session coming up. Also, just one more game that I played this month that I was pretty excited about. I broke out the Arkham Horror, the card game. I hadn't played that in a long time. Just played through the introductory, like the very first scenario, with my nephew to kind of, because we were talking about games and I was telling him about it, and so I broke it out. We played through the first scenario just to kind of give him an idea of how the game works. And it just really like reinvigorated my enthusiasm for the game. It really is a very well designed game. I'd love to have a game with almost the exact same mechanisms in a different theme, because it's not my favorite theme, but still, really exceptional game. So I know I have a lot of scenarios for the game that I haven't played yet. So pretty soon I'll be getting back into playing that, I think. Now, the gaming project that I mentioned, I think last month I talked about, I had played this game called Zia, Legends of a Drift System, and it's a really fun, like, sandbox space game. You're like a mercenary with your own ship, flying around, trading, cargo, collecting bounties. You can be a pirate if you want, you can be an explorer, etc. And the one problem that I had with the game is that there's 3 decks of cards that you draw from at different points, and it could be that you draw a card that can't be resolved because of the current state of the game. Basically, what planets are on the map at the moment and so forth. So I came up with this idea to create like a companion app for the game that would allow you to track the state of the board, basically what planets are on the board at the moment. And then when you go to draw a card, you just tell the app that you want to draw a card from a particular deck, and instead of just giving you a random card, it'll give you a random card from a pool that are specifically cards that could be resolved right now with the current state of the board. So it'll tell you, it'll choose a random card from that pool and then tell you which card it is. So you just flip through the deck till you find that card, and that's the card you drew. So that was the idea. I don't know anything about creating apps. Fortunately, my brother is a very skilled programmer, so he's been working on programming that. I kind of came up with the logic of the system. He's been doing the programming, and it's in a workable state right now. There's just a few tweaks that we probably want to make to it. But maybe in the next month or so, it'll be completely finished, and then that's something that we might make available to other people to use. But even if we don't make it available to other people to use, it'll still be a cool thing that will enhance the game for us. So pretty excited about that. Now, games that I am moving out of my collection, there's 6 of them specifically, and I'll just mention them briefly. Dungeon Drop is sort of like a little puzzle game that I got from Kickstarter. It's a fun little game. I mentioned it briefly last month because I had just played it last month, and my thoughts about it are basically the reason why I'm moving on with it. It's a fun little game, but it's like a little too light for me to really like sink my teeth into, but it's a little like too finicky, or a little too, I don't know. It's not light enough to be like just a light, hey, let's play this real quick kind of game, but it's not like, there's not enough to it to be a more, a more meatier game. So I think it'll appeal to a lot of people. It's just not quite there for me. I'm also getting rid of a game called Fuse, which is a fun real-time cooperative game where you're all trying to defuse a bomb. I like the game, but for me it's been replaced by a game called 5 Minute Marvel, which is real-time cooperative Marvel superheroes taking down supervillains. I like 5 Minute Marvel better. I like the theme better in general because I'm a big fan of Marvel. But also, I like how in 5 Minute Marvel, it feels like you're all working together to overcome a shared obstacle. Whereas in Fuse, it seems like you're each working separately to kind of solve your own little problem. And then you all have to do that separately, individually, to solve your own little problems. And I just kind of like the feel of like we're all working together on the same problem. So it's a minor difference, but for me, it just makes 5 Minute Marvel a little more appealing. I'm also getting rid of Forbidden Island, which is a small cooperative game by the designer of Pandemic. His name is not coming to mind right now, and I don't want to waste your time looking it up. But Forbidden Island is a really good game. The only reason I'm passing it on is because I have lots of similar co-ops. So, one of them had to go. That's all. But it's a really good game. Definitely recommend it if you've never played a co-op before. I think it's simpler, a little bit easier than Pandemic, and it's definitely less expensive. So if you just want to try a cooperative game and you've never tried one before, look up Forbidden Island. It's really good. I'm getting rid of Gravity Warfare. Gravity Warfare is a pretty cool toy. As a game, the rules are kind of a mess. I played it a couple of times, and I had to sort of like tweak the rules to make it better for me. I don't know. I think I played it as a prototype a few years ago at a Dice Tower convention in Orlando. And then I was able to get a hold of it sometime last year off of Amazon. And it's basically you have this board that kind of is balanced on like one pole that sticks up, plastic pole sticks up, and the board is balanced on it. And you're putting these plastic ships onto the board. And of course, as you put the plastic ships on it, the board tends to tilt or wobble one way or another. And at some point, it's going to, tip over and stuff's going to fall off of it. And then the rules have you get points or lose points or whatever, depending on if you're the person who causes it to tip, if your ships fall off, etc. So it's a pretty interesting little like balance / stacking game. It's got a lot of take that to it, so that may or may not appeal to some people. And I came up with rules for it that made it somewhat enjoyable to play. But yeah, I mean that's basically where it is. It's like it's a cool idea, it's a cool toy, but the rules are just kind of a mess. So, and I find that I'm not super big on like those balancing, stacking kinds of games anymore. So yeah, it was just time to pass it on to someone else. Another game that I'm getting rid of is called The Butterfly Garden. I think it's by Dr. Finn Games. It's a pretty neat little card game. The theme is super charming. You're basically collecting butterflies for your garden, and you get different points depending on what butterflies you have or what combination of butterflies you have. And it's just a simple card game. The way you play the cards and manipulate the cards is pretty cool. It's a really good game. I definitely recommend it. It's just I have a number of simple card games, and I can't hang on to all of them. So that's another one. And then finally, Survive with an exclamation point. I think it's called Escape from Atlantis. Basically, the island of Atlantis is sinking. Every player has a number of little guys on the island, and you're trying to get as many of your guys off of the island as you can. Meanwhile, there's like a shark in the water and an octopus, like a giant octopus, and a dolphin, and other things that, the different players can manipulate to try and hinder their opponents from getting guys off of the island to safety, or to, help themselves get their guys off of the island to safety. It's like a family weight competitive game. Nothing really negative to say about it. It's a good game. I just am trying to slim down my collection, so something has to go. Anyhow, that was basically my month of March 2020 in review. I didn't put out any new videos last month. Hopefully I'll be putting out some new videos in the coming weeks. And specifically maybe talking about how I am trying to reduce my collection. I'm trying to definitely get it to less than 100 board games. I think around 50 would be even better. But right now, just to give you an idea, I'm like in the neighborhood of 150, something like that. So I need to slim it down considerably. So I might talk a little bit about some of the principles of how I'm doing that, why I'm doing that, and maybe even review a couple of games in the coming weeks. But anyhow, in any case, thank you for listening. This again is Nathan. You've been watching Nice at Dice, and I hope you enjoy your day.